Mark. Hello.
Hey, Paul.
How are you?
Good. I've decided that being a scientist is hazardous to your health.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially in the world of comic books. So,
Yeah.
but we're going to talk about all that. We're going to take a look at Absolute Flash number 8. We're going to do all of that right after this. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. And hit the notification bell so you're alerted whenever we upload new content. So, Absolute Flash, number 8. We get a little bit more into exactly how things came to be the way that they are in this particular issue.
Yeah, much needed backstory. It really brings together a lot of stuff.
Yes, there is much then occurring in this.
Yeah, much then. Very
Yes.
much then in this issue of Absolute Flash. As a matter of fact, we actually start years ago.
Mhm. Yeah, we see Barry Allen. He's basically teaching, and he's visited by Eleanor Thawne, who has a proposition for him.
Yeah, we're introduced to him in a manner of where he's a high school teacher. And when she gets there and has this meeting to proposition him, we find out that he's kind of been shunned into high school teaching, that he had a big, flashy scientist job, but his crazy, wild ideas and concepts kind of blacklisted him in the science community. And she was here to offer an opportunity to come back into the science community because those same wild ideas that got him kicked out before is exactly what she's looking for now.
Exactly. And so she talks to him about, I can give you all the money you need, all the resources that you want. I can give you all these things forever. And he's like, I don't really think, that this is really going to work out. It's really not going to be for me. And within
He
like
doesn't
within
believe her.
within a page and a half, he basically has signed on.
Yeah, she's very persuasive, apparently, because we
Right.
jump straight to Fort Fox, Colorado, the home of the military base that we've been following all the characters through this. And she's kind of showing them around the research lab that's already well established with a lot of cool stuff, like a large hadron particle collider. She shows them and introduces them to the idea that her father was experimenting with a lot of these things that tie into his research. And she has his old chalkboard on the wall, all these equations, and he's already walking around amazed at what he's seeing. Erasing her dead grandfather's life's work and correcting it, much to her chagrin and surprise. And we start getting a little bit of backstory on her family lineage at this point and how she got into this position.
Right. So her grandfather, which would not surprise anyone since her last name is Thawne, happens to be Eobard Thawne.
And a terrible person.
Exactly, and a terrible person who apparently made some mistakes in math. And Barry, in his best Goodwill Hunting moment, says basically, this is great, but this is all wrong. And like you said, he starts erasing, and then she tells the story of exactly what happened. Although those many years ago, where her grandfather was working, and basically, found this
Other
other
dimension.
other dimension, for lack of a better term. And he happened to be working with a gentleman by the name of Jay Garrick at the time.
Yeah, he was fighting for his life to prove this other dimension. Theoretically, he knew it existed. Now he's trying to find the hard proof, and he's doing everything he can, even doing some unclassical methods like dealing with the occult. We get a panel with him sitting in a circle. It almost looks like having a sweat, but with a seance sigil in the middle of this group of people. And when the government found out that he's kind of doing these unorthodox experiments to try to crack the code, they pretty much blacklist her father at that point. But he doesn't go out without a fight.
Exactly. So he manages to open up this other portal to this other dimension, and he sees basically him and Jay Garrick basically see this, for lack of a better term, this like desert like.
This other world.
Exactly.
Inside the crackle.
Right.
Yeah, he was out here throwing this experiment on without consent from the people he's working for. He's figured before I leave here, before I'm gone, I'm just going to prove it, and they'll love me for it. And in the midst, Jay's like, "Bro, what are you doing, man? We don't know how this will play out. We got to turn it off." He's like, "Yeah, how about no?" And just throws Jay in there, thus killing Jay Garrick. Just throws him in there. Boom, gone.
We think killing Jay Garrick.
Yeah, and we get a little explosion. It looks like it's kind of goes out of control, and that's his legacy.
Right, and and shortly after that, he basically has a moment that he can't let anyone take it from him. I can't let anyone; it's mine. And basically, it kind of engulfs him. And Eobard Thawne was never to be seen again, at least to this point.
Yeah, and then we jump 2 years later, shortly before the events of issue 1 kicking off, and we see uh, Barry is tweaking what will soon become the Flash suit down the road. But he's visited by General West, who gets brought in as the overseer of the project, and he's not real happy about that. He was promised that we're here to do science, and we have all the money, all the funding, and she gives him the classic speech like, "Yeah, we have all the money and funding, but we got to give the military guys something they want so that they'll be happy with us and they'll keep funding it. And so we keep doing our science experiments." And he has a little bit of back and forth with her, a little bit of pushback about that.
Right, and and then being the scientist he is, he wants to do the next experiment. He wants to be part of the next experiment, and she convinces him, "No, you're too important to the project. You know what happened to my grandfather. We can't let the same thing happen to you," type of a thing as well.
Because the next experiment, they decided they're going in.
Right,
It is now time. We have got this machine working. We have opened this dimensional doorway, and it's time to see what's on the other side. And that's what the Flash suit was engineered for. It was engineered for that travel, despite the fact having nothing covering your mouth.
Right.
I just assumed they would mail off for a pair of Batman's underwear for ultimate face protection, as we learned in Chip Zdarsky's run.
You would think. You would think. A good pair of bat undies can solve
That's
any
all you
anything.
need.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it can survive re-entry, it can survive extra dimensional.
Yep. Flash forward
Flash
to
2.
Barry in first meeting Wally now.
Yeah, he goes for a little bite to eat in the diner, the cafeteria, I mean.
Right. And Wally is obviously, he's been following his dad around, so wherever his dad goes, that's where he ends up. So he's basically one of these military kids. He ends up, at the base there, and he basically, has this discussion with Barry about how things, I mean, with Wally about how things are going. Wally's like, things aren't going very well, and Barry's like, "Don't worry, it'll get better, I promise."
Yeah, it was a cool little first contact, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
between Barry and Wally. We know from issue 1 that they had some kind of friendship. Like, this was the kind of guy who worked on the fort that Wally was comfortable spending time with, and he clearly liked Wally. He kind of sees a little bit of himself in Wally, and so we get that vibe from that. But now we cut to the actual experiment. We're entering Still Point Trial 1, and I love that that's what it's called, Still Point, which is an homage to Flash stuff, with the stillness, which we dabbled in recent years too.
Yeah, you got all sorts of points. We got Vanishing Point, we've got Flashpoint, we've got Still Point, we've got all sorts of points. But they open it up to this other dimension. 3 people go in. They manage to find something. They say, "My God, are you seeing this?" Eleanor says, "What is it?" And come to find out that there is now a giant UFO space
UFO, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Inside, we get this huge 2-page spread of exactly the what is inside, and they're like, "I don't think we're the first people here."
Yeah, it's the same UFO that we saw inside the fort, which obviously they found a way to get back to the fort, and they get it back and they retrieve it. We do a little bit of time hopping here, but they get it back out of there. We still don't have any explanation on that, but now we know where it came from. At least it came from this other dimension.
Mm-hmm. So we see Wally and we see Barry and Eleanor arguing about what's going on and everything, and
They're wanting to harvest. I think this is important.
Yeah.
The speed trail when Flash moves, which we've talked about. We're not even sure if he's actually a speedster in this, because the way it's drawn with like kind of the lines and the weird design to it, the way that the energy signature looks surrounding him doing his powers, the way it looks around this experiment when they're doing that. But we have a name for it. It's called red matter, and that's some kind of energy source that them as scientists, they want to get a hold of, contain, sample, experiment on.
Right. He says, and Eleanor says we need to be very careful. or will end up just like my grandfather, destroyed by the very thing that he coveted. And it's like, he says, I know that, Eleanor, I do. It's just, and she says, what is it? She says, nothing. It's nothing. He's having his doubts as well. So then she leaves. He's now there, and Barry starts to hear he starts to hear his name being called.
Yeah.
Um,
Much like in her grandfather's journal,
right,
he had talked about hearing a voice from
right.
inside. And he's standing at the foot of their big experiment machine, just kind of thinking about everything, and he hears his name and he looks up and we see some of the red matter coming out to him, calling to him, and it says, "Help me." And he touches it and he gets a flash, pun not intended, but he gets a flash of old man Flash. We don't know if it's him. I think it's him, or if it's Wally. We don't know who it is, but we get that as a cliffhanger. It looks like he appears and disintegrates, and you see how the lines are represented around him with the red matter. That's kind of how it's represented with Wally when he's using these abilities. And we were told going into this that it will not be the Speed Force, and we're getting introduced to this extra dimensional kind of thing, and the concept of red matter and which reminds me of Star Trek more than anything, how they had the red matter in that. And but I'm more interested now in this series than ever. I like that they applied such a heavy-handed science aspect to it, and they're not overly explaining it, but there's a lot of science stuff to talk about and theorize on, and it's all comic book science, so the sky is the limit. This is really well done.
Yeah, and it's well formulated in that for every question it may answer, it also opens up a couple more questions as well. So it's kind of moving the narrative forward. It'll be interesting to see exactly, is that Barry? Is Barry seeing himself, telling him stop? It must be Wally West. Is it Jay Garrick somehow? Probably not, because he was wearing the Flash costume and Jay Garrick wasn't when he went in. But who knows? Are Jay Garrick and Eobard really gone? Will they be back?
There's been a couple of scenes through the series where we've seen like almost another energy entity parallel with Wally. I'm wondering if that's Jay or something. If there's these disembodied entities that are still alive in some form inside the red matter. It was issue 1 or so when we saw Wally find the suit on the dead body of Barry. So I'm leaning toward that it's Barry seeing himself from maybe a different time. Maybe we're dealing with like time displacement, something. I again, the sky's the limit, really, and it's fun to try to theorize about it, to spec on these stories.
Absolutely. Another strong issue, makes me want to come back for more. So, and that's all you can really ask from a comic book. So,
yeah.
But that's going to be it for this edition of DC Comics Deep Dive. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, and like right down there. Just hit the little thumbs up like button. So, but we'll be back next week with another edition. But as of right now, I am Paul. He is Mark.
But we're Legion.
And you're now leaving Sector 2815.